Okay, good.
Good job. That
We're
was
all
your main
set.
goal for today. You did a good job.
Okay. This is like the first time I usually remember after I do the introduction. Um, Welcome everyone to our Collaberex monthly workshop where we allow our members to really share their expertise on topics that are important to all our members. Uh, we it's a member workshop where we also invite select guests, and so we're happy to have all the guests here also to really kind of be able to learn about this content and the kind of professionals that we have in our community. So today we're so happy to have Dorinda Eldridge. I had to speak to her agent like 7 times to get her to do this and schedule it, and but I was persistent. So today's topic is on the power of market research. And briefly, as everyone knows, information is power. So market research is a tool that can be used to obtain information that is vital to optimizing strategic decision-making in business. Dorinda has been owner of Spectrum Associates Market Research, a seasoned market research professional with over 35 years of experience. She serves her clients by being a trusted partner they can turn to when they need information to make the next right move. And in her spare time, she dabbles with art, hikes in the woods, and provides education about ovarian cancer to women and to medical students. And Dorinda, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it. Um, just a little bit more on the background. First, Jonathan, thank you so much for the opportunity. And those guests who are here versus Collaberex members, Collaberex is a great networking group. So you should definitely look into attending a meeting. Sorry, there's somebody outside and my Ring camera is beeping. Apologize for that. Um, but Jonathan's put together a great group and I'm honored to be part of it. So thank you for being here. As Jonathan said, I've been doing market research for over 35 years, served hundreds of clients. Some were great, most were good. Luckily, only a couple of them were really not so good. I would guess most of us in business could say that you get a mix of people that you have to deal with. So I've used market research and the skills that I've acquired in that field in traditional ways, and I'm probably going to talk about it today, mostly traditional, but you can use it in non-traditional ways as well. I worked on studying the disparity of the juvenile justice system in making decisions for Black, Hispanic, and white juveniles. I worked with the U.S. Attorney's Office trying to help reduce gun violence in the city of New Haven. So completely different type of work, but same skill set. So it really can be applied in a whole lot of ways. So I am going to share my screen. Okay, and if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat. Jonathan is going to keep an eye on those for me. I have a hard time coordinating everything, including reading the chat. So Jonathan will watch that for us. I don't think our group is a huge group today. So if you really have a burning question and want to unmute, you can go ahead and do that if I've really got you confused or something, or it's just an issue that's especially important. So the power of market research. As Jonathan said, information is power. Data can provide answers. Some would argue that you can make data say anything you want it to. And I could not disagree with something any more than that. Data doesn't have an opinion. Data doesn't lie. It's the people part of it that gets a little bit messy sometimes when you're talking about data. Some people come to the table with preconceived notions on what they think that the data will show or should show, and have a hard time putting that aside when looking at the data. So as you enter into the world of market research, if you decide to do so, you need to make sure that you check your biases at the door because they cannot help you. They will only harm you. We actually did a study, gosh, forever ago. It's got to be 30 years ago for the Hartford Whalers. we did some research on their new tagline. So the gentleman in charge had us do the research. We tested 4 different taglines. The one that the consumers liked best, he didn't like, and he used the one that he wanted to in the first place. Not quite sure why he paid us to do the study. We're happy to take his money, but it really was a waste because he didn't listen. Now, would the Hartford Whalers still be here if they had used the right tagline? We'll never know, but maybe. So that's my first tip of the day. Keep an open mind. I want this to be as helpful as possible. So if you have questions that are in a different direction, I'll certainly try to entertain those at the end. We should have plenty of time for questions. So my plans for this workshop are to talk to you about why you should do market research, discuss the overall process, share a number of stories, some where research went very well and some places where it went not so well. And then we'll touch a little bit on do it yourself. Good idea or a bad idea? And I'll give you my opinion at the end. So why do market research? In business, we hear from our customers. However, I would argue that we hear from a small select sample of our customers, typically those who are unhappy. They have a product that they purchased from you and it broke. They felt that the teller at the counter was rude. Your hours aren't big enough, open enough on the weekends maybe. But when you're making decisions for your business, you really want to hear from the whole target market. So all of your customers, you don't want decisions to be made just on this group here, those people who are really unhappy. By including a sample of all of your customers, what you end up with is data that more accurately represent the thoughts, excuse me, the thoughts, opinions, and perceptions of the target market, rather than just that biased subset. So let's talk about data for just a second. In market research, there are 2 broad categories and types of research. There's qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative is something you would use to dig deep, to really try to get to the bottom of a problem or to get some exploratory information on a possible new product. Typically, you would conduct a focus group or an in-depth interview for qualitative research. Quantitative, which is typically done with surveys, although there are some other things you can do, are what you need to do if you need statistically projectable data. So if you want to be able to say that 70% of our customers prefer the blue product over the red product, you need to do a survey. You need quantitative data. So talk for a minute about some positive, successful market research stories. So messaging. We're surrounded by messages 24/7 these days. It's important that a business get their messaging correct. So I have a medical school client, and they were interested in attracting non-traditional medical students. So this is somebody who has a 4-year college degree, but went off and worked for a couple of years or maybe even longer, and then got the calling where they wanted to be a doctor. So they needed to look into applying to medical schools. They reached out to their advertising agency and had them develop 3 different concepts to attract these non-traditional medical students. The ads were really cool, and I wish that I could share them with you, but I had to sign an NDA. So therefore, we've got concept A, B, and C. The executive team overseeing this effort felt that option A, or concept A, was the one that would most resonate with these non-traditional medical students. Luckily, they hired us to do a survey for them. We did a survey with prospective non-traditional medical students. During the survey, the students were each shown all 3 concepts, asked a number of questions, what they liked most, if they liked the graphics, if they liked some of the text. And then at the end, they were asked which of the 3 would most attract their attention and most increase the likelihood that they would reach out to the school for more information. So the survey found that half of the prospective students that we talked to thought that concept B was the one that would most attract their attention and get them to reach out to the school for more information. The executive team thought it was going to be A, but the students thought it was B. So why is there a disconnect there? Well, the problem is the executive team are not the target market. The executive team is probably filled up with, business executives, maybe some advertising executives, not the target market. When we talked to the target market, concept B was the one that won. It's important to have the messaging best meet your target market. At some point in time, most businesses will run into some kind of a problem. Now, you can use a variety of sources to try to get to the bottom of the problem and figure out possible solutions, but market research is one of those options that can be considered. So the story I'm going to share with you is for an insurance company. So for the property claims, they have the claims adjusters use drones to record damage done to rooftops. So a training program was developed. It was over multiple days. The students learned as classroom learning as well as some practice time with the drones. The survey done at the end of the training program found that the satisfaction scores weren't terrible, but they weren't really as high as the training manager was hoping that they would be. So the training manager had a theory that the students just wanted more time flying the drones. And if they were able to fit that into the schedule, that the scores would go up. But a second survey was done to explore those low satisfaction scores. And what we found was that not only did the students want more time flying the drones, they wanted to practice flying over different types of roofs. I put a couple up here as examples, but clearly there's different skills and steering that would need to be used to fly drones over different kind of rooftops. So to address this, the insurance company structured a series of sheds out in the training school program, parking lot, excuse me, and the students were able to practice flying the drones over those different sheds. At the end of the training program, once the sheds were implemented, the satisfaction scores for the training program went up significantly. So I'm going to stop with the stories for just a second and talk about the process of a project. Now, the specifics will vary, obviously, from project to project, but the general steps are going to be the same regardless. So start off with goals and objectives. Step 1. This is the foundation of any market research project. What do you need to know? What are you going to do with the information? What are you trying to achieve? It's important to know this when planning the research. Once you know what you need to know, you have to figure out how to best get the information. Do you need qualitative research, or do you need a survey, quantitative research? Do you need to ask open-ended questions, closed-ended questions, multiple choice, ranking questions? Those are all the kinds of things that you want to think about at step 2 in the market research project. Step 3 is, who are the right people to give you the answers? Like we saw with the story for the medical school, having the executive team complete a survey was not very helpful, and in fact would have steered the school in the wrong direction. You want to make sure that you're talking to the right people. Do you need to talk to current customers, lost customers, prospective customers? Maybe you need to talk to employees. Asking the right questions to the wrong people is more dangerous than not asking the questions at all, because you think you have the answers, but you've got the wrong ones. So if you've asked the right questions of the right people, what you end up with is a nice set of representative data. That data can then be analyzed and reported out. The result provides you the key value of market research, the ability to make informed decisions. Mistakes are expensive, so when you're at a fork in the road, market research can help you pick the right path. So I've shared a couple stories of how market research went well. I thought I would share a couple of much less well market research that's been done. So this one I actually have personal experience with. I've been with the company for over 36 years. I bought the company in 2016. As the new owner, I joined a couple of different networking groups and associations, one of which was this Women's Entrepreneurial Association. So on their Instagram feed one day, they posted this. So I want to give you just a minute to read it. And then let me ask you why I'm showing you this as a cautionary tale. And if anybody has any ideas and want to unmute and shout it out, feel free to do so. Okay, so the key concerning line for me in this post, if you're wanting to do some market research to ensure you're nailing your offer for your ideal client, then drop links to your surveys here and let us help you get that essential market research. So the ideal client is a problematic part. So unless your ideal client is a female entrepreneur, you're not getting research from your ideal client. You're talking to the wrong people. So this association, like I said, I belonged. There were a couple of product subscription services that belonged, a lady who was making bows for babies, a CPA, and a realtor. So if the baby bow lady posted a link to her survey here, there probably were some women who were mothers of babies in this group, but not a very representative group of women who have babies. You're only talking with women who have babies who belong to an entrepreneurial association. So you need to make sure that you're talking to the right people. And this, while the association was trying to be helpful, they very much were not, and probably most people didn't realize. My second example of market research gone wrong is much more famous. And I remember this in real time. I'm at the end of the baby boomer generation, so this was in my day. So back in the late 70s and early 80s, Coca-Cola's market share was declining. And the company developed a new formula to try to combat that. They conducted over 200,000 blind taste tests. The result of the taste tests were that more than half preferred this new formula than both the original Coke and Pepsi, which was obviously their primary competitor. So in 1985, New Coke was released and the original formula was taken off the market. New Coke was a complete disaster. So what went wrong? While there may have been many contributing factors, there was definitely a flaw in the market research. The taste test assumed that taste was the deciding factor in deciding to buy one soda over another. And certainly with the original Coke and maybe other sodas as well, this was wrong. Consumers were very attached to the original Coke. Does anybody remember the I'd like to buy the world of Coke? I mean, there was a lot culturally wrapped around that brand. So people are attached emotionally and symbolically to that original Coke. This was not considered as part of the taste test research. Consumers were not happy. 79 days after the initial announcement for the new Coke, the company brought back the new formula and called it Coca-Cola Classic. New Coke was renamed Coke 2 in 1990 and discontinued in July of 2002. This mistake cost the company millions of dollars and also made them the subject of a case study in almost every business school in the country, maybe even internationally. It just was such a debacle. So what went wrong? Both of these cases, they ignored a key step in that market research process that I pointed out to you. You got to talk to the right people and you need to ask the right questions. So for the taste testing, they needed to talk about what factors were important in purchasing a soda, just not test the taste. All right, I'm going to circle back and give you a couple more successful stories so that you don't leave feeling that market research is just problematic. So just like the drone training story for the insurance company, the problem is not always what you think. So I did some work with the Chamber of Commerce. They had an increasing percentage of members who were not renewing. Now this was pre-COVID, so the whole COVID and in-person and all that was not part of this. So the staff members would reach out to members who were not renewing to find out why they had decided not to renew. Typically, in fact, the vast majority of the time, these non-renewing members would say it just costs too much or budgets had been cut. It was all about dollars and cents. So in talking with the executive director of the chamber, we decided to do a survey of lapsed members. The survey is anonymous. When the staff members call the member and say, why aren't you renewing? It's personal. Like, Jonathan, I don't want to renew my membership with Collaberex. If I think he's doing a terrible job, I may just say it costs too much because I don't want to hurt his feelings. So I think that the chamber was experiencing some of that as well. So we did a survey with lapsed members, and what we found, that cost was part of the issue. But in a number of cases, it was really more about value than dollars and cents costs. This was a small chamber, so some people felt that they weren't drawing from a large enough area, that they needed something where they could be networking with businesses from across the state. Some were concerned about some of the aspects of the meetings. Either the venue wasn't a good venue, they didn't like the hours that they were being held. So there were things that the chamber could do beyond just maybe reducing the membership fees to get some of these members back. So in addressing this problem, the chamber needed to consider more than just the dollars.
So, Dorinda, I have a quick
Yes,
question.
absolutely.
So was the chamber's issue solely that members were not renewing? Or was the chamber's issue was we want more members?
This was looking at non-renewals.
Okay.
So I think that and I don't know if it varies by chamber. I mean, there's a percentage that they expect not to renew each year, but they had seen this percentage increase a couple of years in a row. So they were trying to figure out what was going on. Good question. We all know it's happy to keep customers happy. It's much more expensive to get a new customer than to keep a current one. Depending on the industry, it costs 4 to 10 times more money to get a new customer than it does to keep a current one. And in some industries, it's even more expensive. Happy customers stay with you. Maybe they buy more from you, either in quantity of the product they've been buying, or maybe they diversify. And hopefully they spread the word. Aging myself again, this kind of reminded me of that Fabergé shampoo commercial where you tell 2 friends and they tell 2 friends, and it exponentially grows the number of people who are hearing about your product. So that's what you want with your current customers. So customer satisfaction survey, probably everybody has at least heard of them, if not taken one these days, since everybody's doing surveys. I would recommend strongly doing 2-dimensional testing. So yes, you want to know how people rate you on various aspects, but it's critical to know how important those different aspects are. So the Coke story was a good example. Another one that I've been looking at for probably 25 years, it's not a new thing. In banking, banks think it's really important for them to be involved in the community. So they always want to ask about that attribute. Most banks get rated pretty well on that, but 9 times out of 10, it's the least important attribute to consumers and to customers. So it's good to keep in mind how important something is to your customers, not just how they rate you for it. So to show you an example of this, let's talk about a restaurant. It's just a made-up restaurant. It's not something that, not a study that I did for a restaurant. I've selected 4 different characteristics of a restaurant: the quality and taste of the food, the variety of menu options, service, and ambiance. So we're using a 5-point scale: excellent, very good, good, fair, or poor. Oops. And the chart on the left, the one on the right is supposed to be hidden. It's supposed to be a surprise, so don't look at the right side of your screen. On the left, it's showing you the average ratings of these 4 attributes. So the quality and taste of the food had an average rating of 4.7, service 4.6, variety of menu options, and then the ambiance was a 3.5. if you just did a survey on the ratings of these attributes, if you own this restaurant, you might say, gee, I really need to do something about the ambiance of my restaurant. That's the attribute that's rated lowest. Now, ambiance might be easy to address. Maybe you dim the lights, or it can be more costly. Maybe you need a separate door to enter or something. So ambiance could be expensive to address. So the chart on the right shows the blue bar is showing the average for the importance ratings, and then the line chart is the same. It's the average for the performance ratings for that attribute. So for this restaurant, the quality and the taste of food was the most important attribute and also the highest rated attribute. You can see that the square is right on the end of the blue bar. So that's an area where the restaurant owner can be very comfortable. Quality and taste is most important, and people are satisfied to the level that they feel it's important. Variety of menu options was the second most important. But as you can see here, the rating for that is much lower. And in fact, there's a negative gap of 0.60. So this is an area of concern. Our performance ratings on the second most important attribute is quite a bit lower than we want it to be. Service was the third most important, and you can see on the chart that the performance outpaces importance a little bit. So that's always nice to see. And then ambiance had the lowest rating, but you can see it's also quite a bit less important than those other three attributes. So if I own this restaurant, I'm going to focus on trying to add more variety to my menu to increase customer satisfaction. The ambiance, maybe once I've got the other thing all set, maybe I'll take a look at ambiance if it's not expensive, but it's not an area where I have a huge gap. So
Dorinda?
yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe you said this before, I didn't catch it. Do the blue bars represent industry standards?
No, it's part of the same survey. So it's the same customers rating how important an attribute is to them. So it would be like a 5-point scale, extremely important, very important, reasonably, not too, not at all. So that's the average score for the customers who completed the survey as to how important that attribute is to them.
And then they represent.
I'm sorry, you broke up. What'd you say?
Then what do the black dots represent? What are they
black-
being measured against?
The black dots are the average performance rating for that attribute.
So
Average within the industry?
so how the customers believe that this particular restaurant performed in terms of a variety of menu options.
Right. This is just actually, it's even a made up survey for a restaurant. It does not consider industry standards
Thank you.
in this example.
Right. Yeah. So those clients there felt that variety of menu options were very important, but the restaurant fell short by the biggest gap.
Right. Do you get it,
I'm
Marie?
sorry. So now I understand. So it's what they thought was important and then how it got it. Okay. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
So I know maybe you missed, that's the two-dimensional testing that I was talking about for customer satisfaction. You want to measure how important something is and compare how you're rated on it.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Now I got it. Okay.
Well, you know, that's part of the problem with Zoom is I have a hard time seeing faces. So I can't tell if you don't understand. So thank you for speaking up. When you're in a room, I can kind of see, oh boy, they really have no idea what I'm talking about. So thank you for asking the question. So I've shared a few stories of how market research helped a company get their messaging right, how companies can use it to solve problems, and addressing customer satisfaction. There are lots of other applications, even in the traditional market research arena. You can do work on employee engagement. If you're a professional association that does some advocacy work, you could ask your members to rate how important different advocacy positions are to them. We actually doing quite a bit of work lately with a marketing expert, a legal expert, and we do surveys to help document the degree to which consumers are confused for trademark infringement and secondary meaning studies. So kind of a non-traditional use of market research, but it's now something that judges are allowing in court cases at this point. So the next thing I want to talk a little bit on is do it yourself or professional. So with the advent of technology and market research, as well as lots of other industries, people are a little bit more enabled to do things themselves. But is that a good idea? For me, I thought I would give you 3 tips for market research, do it yourself. Actually, 4 tips. The first thing is to stop and think, should you be doing this yourself? So what is your background or skill level for doing market research? How complex is the project? Kind of an analogy that I thought of for doing do-it-yourself market research is if you think about your home and all the do-it-yourself projects people do in their homes now. So you've got a ceiling fixture in your bedroom. The light bulb was out. You discover that the light bulb needs to be changed. So you just need to change the light bulb. I think that's a problem most consumers can do themselves. So maybe you change the light bulb and it's still not working. So you decide, well, maybe the fixture has a short and needs to be replaced. Now you've got to think about your skill set for replacing a ceiling fixture. There may be some consumers who can do that safely, but I would venture to guess many would be best off hiring a professional. So maybe the fixture is fine and maybe the light bulb is fine. Maybe there's an issue with the wiring in your house. I would argue that there are very few, if any, consumers who should be doing rewiring of their house on their own. If you think about those levels of complexity with market research, I think that will help you in deciding whether or not to do it yourself or hire a professional. Professional definitely costs money, but at least then you're getting some more quality work than you can probably do on your own. So my 3 tips: talk to the right people. You've got to figure out who it is that you need to talk to get the information that you need. Make sure you ask the right questions the right way. Not only is it qualitative versus quantitative, it's also open-end versus closed-ended. And then there's the whole thing of not asking leading questions, of asking questions in the right order. It amazes me sometimes when a potential client will put together a draft questionnaire and they'll ask first, what's your opinion of these 4 different companies? And then do an open-ended, what company would you use for industry A? So you just gave me the names of 4 of them, but now you're asking me an unaided question. So that's really problematic with the data that you're answering. So you've got to make sure that you're asking the right questions in the right way, in the right order. And then lastly, which for some people can be especially onerous, is to leave your biases at the door. Especially if you're doing do-it-yourself market research. Sometimes it's hard to see those on your own. So that's the presentation that I've put together. I don't have a clock within view, so I don't even know where we are with time. Okay, so we've got about 20 minutes. Anyone who's here live, I'm happy to do a 30-minute consult, Zoom or phone, to better understand some specific aspect of market research that I didn't really go into, to talk about maybe how market research can help with an issue that you're struggling with, or even to give you a few more tips on do it yourself, if that's a path that you're thinking about going down. And of course, anybody who's here from Collaberex, don't hesitate to reach out at any point. I mean, our whole thing is to support each other. So I'll more than willing to take any questions for that.
Yeah, Dorinda?
Yep.
Okay, couple of quick questions. In my industry, we have to penetrate clutter. I have to try and reach CEOs of companies and try and get information out of them to qualify them before I can obviously help them. So the question really is, there's a lot of different clutter that I get in my email box about people trying to help me every day. I
Mhm.
get these SEO guys who want to drive traffic to a website, and that won't work for somebody like me. Nobody's going to look at my website and decide to hire me in a complex, expensive transaction.
Mhm.
Obviously, direct referral is the best way, but if you're going in a scattergun fashion, what does it cost to put together a survey like this? How do you target, as you point out, the right people? That seems to be an enormous challenge today, to try to even get all the right people to contact. And can it be done in small surveys like following up on my customers? Can it be done in big surveys? I'm in commercial real estate. Can I survey people to say, are you planning on doing something with your office lease in the next couple of years? I mean, I'm just trying to understand. And if I'm giving you too much information, maybe you can help me synthesize this question of mine.
Okay, well, a couple of things that you've mentioned. First of all, what you're really looking for is lead generation, not market research. So if I do a survey, I protect the anonymity. No, that's not the confidentiality
Yeah,
of that data. If I did a survey to identify who might be buying a house, I would not tell you the people who are buying a house. So you need like a lead generation service that will do some data mining for you.
right. So
Um,
yours is totally anonymous, never identifying people.
Correct. I mean, I know who they are, but I never pass that on to the end client.
Right. So you're looking for trends as opposed to specifics.
Yes. Yeah. And not industry trends like Marie was asking about, but trends in the data that will help my client make good decisions. So for example, every year I do a member satisfaction survey for a real estate association. This year, member satisfaction went down, and anybody who knows the real estate industry knows there's a lot of stuff going on right now. So we're doing some follow-up in-depth interviews. So I use the data from the survey to recruit people for the IDIs, but only I know who those people are. The Realtor Association will find out what people's thoughts are, but they won't know that Larry thinks this. Because then next time Larry's not going to want to share his opinions to me because the executive director called him and said, "Why do you think that?" So you can't do that. The lady that I worked with for the chamber, she wanted the data and didn't use me again because I wouldn't give it to her. She wanted to know who said what. And
You have ethics.
say that again.
You have ethics.
I do have ethics. So, and as far as um, trying to get through to people, it's a struggle. It's absolutely a struggle. I don't have the magic formula or answer for that. So I'm
I
not
have
sure I
a
helped you, Larry.
question related to what Larry said,
Yep.
which is, so you gave an example about doing work for a med school that was looking for non-traditional med students.
Mm-hmm.
How do you find the people to survey? I mean, like here's this, we're looking for people that, as you said, graduated from college and then did something else for a couple of years and then had the calling to be a doctor. How could you
Right.
find the people who had the calling?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. For the med school, we did some creative testing for them. Not for just the non-traditional, but more generic also. And what we used was not an ideal list. It was a list of people who had reached out to their website um, to get information. So not true prospective students of that school so that they could react to the different lists, but not true prospective students. The true prospective student survey that we did, we actually worked with the company, their name is escaping me, that administers the MCATs. So they have a list and they won't sell you the list, but you can buy a one-time use and they'll send it out for you. And then for consumers and businesses to some degree, but more for consumers, there's online panels. So there are people who join online panels and they get rewarded in different fashions and they agree to do surveys. So you still have to screen them to make sure one, they qualify. And then two, we always put in what we call red herring questions to make sure they're really doing the survey and paying attention. So the question will say, below, select the color green. And some percentage will not pick the color green, they'll pick a different color. And we always kick them out for bad quality and have the panel company remove them because they clearly were not paying attention.
Yeah.
A
So,
challenge.
I mean,
Can you change your answer? Because I would have done it so quickly and picked blue instead and then realized, oh no, I was wrong. So
No, I don't let people change their answer. And in fact, I've had people email me and say, I picked the wrong answer. Can you resend it? And I say no, because I have to err on the side of good quality data. And if I lose a respondent who made a mistake, that's the price I've got to pay.
yeah. Okay. So part of my question is a question that I actually thought Kevin should ask. So so he's all about, creating emotional connections between companies, their products and services, and the audience they're trying to reach.
Mhm.
Is that correct, or did I completely screw that up, Kevin? Okay. Anyway, so if you're a company and you're trying to, there's some emotional connections that you're trying to create. And Kevin, you could fill this in. And here you have this audience. How do you find that it's the same thing? How do you find that audience that are going to reply to maybe those emotional triggers? It's kind of what I was saying before. How do you find people that had a calling?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's all about, I mean, you could start with online panels, or actually, I just saw Larry's question. When you want to do work with customers, typically the customer will have a customer list that you can use. I mean, Kevin can speak to what he does a whole lot better than I can. I think he does research
Yeah.
with his stuff.
Well, Dorinda, I think you covered a lot of Jonathan's question in you have to ask the right questions and you have to find the right people. Those are two very important things that you covered that I think are super important to that. So even with Larry's question, certainly can't help with identifying individuals for lead generation, but you can recruit a panel of people who are decision makers in the things that Larry wants them to make decisions on and then get their opinions.
Mhm.
Or their feelings or their, those are all things that are possible. But asking the right questions to the right people and using the right research methodology, all things that you talked about, I think are super important.
I'm glad we're on the same page.
Yes, we are very much.
Yeah. Come on, people. Am I the only one that has a list of questions?
Larry, I just saw your question in the chat, which I don't know if it was before or after you asked the question out loud. I mean, the cost to do a survey, it's a really customized. What it takes to qualify to be a participant matters. If you have somebody, we did a study recently and people had to have bought floor mats for a car in the last year. So, that's probably less common than somebody who went to the grocery store last week. So that impacts the cost. And doing something to make it automatic for all customers, yes, that is something that can be done. And doing research with your customers is much cheaper than doing research with people that you have to buy access to.
So any dollar commitment here, or just call me and we'll discuss.
Yeah, yeah. If you want to have a call, we can talk more about that.
Okay, thanks.
Marie?
Yeah, I'm trying to find the right way to phrase this because I've got like 5 different things coming in my brain here. But I work in my industry. I'm trying to change what people think. I do design and home staging, and everybody thinks in real estate staging is you bring a truck of white furniture to a trophy house on the water, and that's that. And I do pretty much everything else except that, and I do okay with that. But I'm trying to normalize it. is that a market research type of thing? So I can, because most people are just, no, it's what I see on HGTV. You know, and or they just don't have the time. They just don't, you know, I don't know if that's a market research thing, if you have an idea that kind of, you know, goes against the tide. But it works. It seems to work. I don't know.
What
I
I'm
don't know
hearing
that that's
is, I'm hearing several of you talking more about lead generation, marketing, positioning, messaging, which is more under the umbrella of marketing than market research, I think. Correct me if
Yeah.
I'm wrong, Dorinda.
Yeah, Marie, what you're talking, I mean, you could do a survey to think what their perceptions are of your industry, whether it be, you know, real estate agents or consumers, but to figure out if you want to find a way to have consumers view you differently, that's the role of marketing, not market research.
well, wouldn't the research sort of give shape to the branding?
Yeah, to a certain extent.
Yes, it would. Market research and marketing work hand in hand. Market research is the arm that gathers information, and marketing is going to disseminate information into your target market.
Okay.
So we would find out what people think of you. Eileen and Ted would say, here, people, this is what you need to know. So it's kind of, they
Yeah,
work
but
well together, but they have different jobs.
we need the direction of market research many times because we don't know what we're dealing with as far as the clients,
Audience.
the audience of the clients as to what they want. I mean, for example, if someone wants a widget, we have to know, well, where do we sell it? Who are the people who would buy it and so forth? And that will all come from market research. Unfortunately, the smaller companies don't have the ability to really do the necessary market research because it costs money, number one, and they can't see the value of it, but it is very valuable.
So marketing is the implementation of what market research finds out.
Exactly.
You got it. You got it.
Give her an A.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Can I just ask a quick question of Amanda? Amanda, do you think that staging is not looked at,
Ooh.
you know, as mainstream or normalized, or it's only
Is
what
Amanda
people see on?
a real estate
on-
agent?
No,
Oh.
she does staging, she does moving, she does, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you two should know each other. You would like each other.
You're on mute.
Oh, she can't hear us, maybe. Who knows? But she can hear, but do you know sign language?
Yeah.
Well, you two should get to know each other, and I'll introduce
Okay.
you.
Okay, sorry. I was saying I could hear you, but I couldn't unmute for some reason. I don't know what was happening there. I mean, I think it's really more a question of educating the realtors than it is about. I mean, you can't educate all of the public, right, at the same time, but you can find some realtors who strongly believe in it, and then those are your go-to people who I think are the place where when they're going on pitches, they say like, and this needs to be staged, and we'll bring in our stager, or we'll bring in multiple bids, or we'll, you know, like, because I mean, I think it very occasionally comes from the homeowner, but the general public, I feel like, isn't really fully informed. So I don't know, that's my sense. Just not.
Yeah. Thank you. Great.
Sure.
Al, you have your hand raised. Unmute. There you go.
Okay, I wanted to address the point that Larry brought up before about finding leads, if I may. Assuming, Larry, that your target audience are business owners with a net worth of $50 million. And that's the audience that you're looking to, or 10 million or 20 million, whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
Instead of doing cold calling and networking and wasting a lot of your time, the ideal situation would be to find someone that is calling on the same prospects that you are, but are not in competition with you.
Sure.
And they could become your referral partner. Now, it's important for you to match yourself in terms of your client base to the people that you want to have as strategic partners. For example, if your target audience is a $50 million individual business owner, and you're talking with, let's say, a CPA that's doing business with business owners that are doing 1 to 5 million, it's not going to be a good match. So
Right.
in that respect, you have to do your research and look for the right match and be willing to give and help people, and then they will want to help you as well.
Right. Thank you, Al. Good advice.
Thank
So,
you.
Dorinda, I have a question. So, I know most of your the work that you do are for larger organizations, people that have companies that have you know, high annual revenues or lots of employees. But a lot of what you do and you're talking about, it so applies to even smaller businesses. There are so many decisions that we make that are even more costly to us
Right.
proportionally than they are for larger organizations. You could make a couple mistakes and be out of business when larger companies have some leeway. So what are some things that smaller organizations or even solopreneurs can do that really can help them make better decisions that are not do it yourself?
Mm.
Like, we don't have time to do it ourselves. We'd want to hire you to do it if we say, this is a really important decision in my business. It's that pre-marketing work.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the things that you've done or can do that would help organizations that aren't as large as the ones you're used to working with?
Yeah, I mean, it's really challenging because everything is expensive, especially if it's a new company and they don't have customers to talk to. So you have to purchase access to a sample to people. It can get really expensive. If you have a consumer product that almost everybody uses, you might be able to, do something with that. Other than that, I think you've got to rely upon more, secondary research, going to the library and talking to the research librarian. There's actually all kinds of information available to companies on data in their state for different industries. So it wouldn't be specific to them, but at least it would provide them some guidance.
Yeah. I don't know. It's so important to understand your customers
Mm-hmm.
and to understand why, and this gets back to some of the work that Kevin does, why they are making buying decisions.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought it was fascinating that in the last couple of years, I guess maybe Procter and Gamble started it. All the detergent companies realized that people didn't care about how clean their detergent gets their clothes. They only cared about how it makes them smell. They completely changed all of their marketing and all their advertising and every commercial. It's never about we get it cleaner. It's all about we make it smell better.
And they probably spent a good penny on market research to
I
find that
am
out.
certain they did. And I'm certain they read the whole Coca-Cola case study
Because I had to say
before
it.
they did. So,
Yeah, now you can say it.
yeah. So, we have like a minute left. Anyone have any final questions that you want to ask Dorinda? She's wonderful to talk to, extremely accessible, and we're so happy that Dorinda, thank you so much for doing this, and so happy to have your kind of knowledge base in our community. It's such a value.
Thank you so much for the platform. This was great. This was a
Good
fun hour, so
presentation.
thank you.
That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a great day, everybody.
Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Jonathan. Thank you, Dorinda.
Welcome.
Marie.
Thank you, thank you.